a playlist original.
Well, a boy's best friend is his mother.
Kill her, Mommy. Kill her.
We'll tear your soul apart.
Live or die. Make your choice.
What are you waiting for, huh? What are you waiting for?
I'm not even gonna swat that fly. I hope they are watching. They'll see. They'll see and they'll know. And they'll say, "Why, she wouldn't even harm a fly."
They're here.
I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face, the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
The film which you are about to see is an account of the tragedy which befell a group of 5 youths, in particular, Sally Hardesty and her invalid brother, Franklin. It is all the more tragic in that they were young. But had they lived very, very long lives, they could not have expected, nor would they have wished to see as much of the mad and macabre as they were to see that day. For them, an idyllic summer afternoon drive became a nightmare. The events of that day were to lead to the discovery of one of the most bizarre crimes in the annals of American history, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Back to the Blockbuster with your hosts, Gaius and Jackson, continuing our Tales of Horror series. Can't believe it's October 16th as of this recording. We started this in September. Felt like we had all the time in the world to talk about so many horror movies, and like it's
rapidly closing. Soon. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. It's really not long enough of a season, but I feel like we've made the most out of it, especially with today's watches. Nice to knock these off the list as well. But I've been really enjoying Halloween so far. How about yourself?
So far, it's been really good. I mean, I'm enjoying like watching not just the stuff that we've had to watch for this, but
right.
I think most of the things I've been watching have been just spooky season stuff. Like it's funny, like they sent me Barbie today. Warner Brothers did, and I was like, yeah, I do want to watch it again. But I was like, I kind of just want to. I'll wait until like November.
Right, exactly. Why not? Because it'll be a sharp change right after the 31st.
Yeah,
like, spooky season's kind of left in the dust, unfortunately.
But the good thing about spooky season is that we get to have guests on to talk about all these different horror movies. And the person that we have on today is actually doing his best Invisible Man impersonation because we can't see him, but we'll be able to hear Mr. Jeremy Gibbler. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you guys?
Yes, welcome on, Jeremy.
Yeah, thanks.
Nice to have you.
Yeah, you can hear my voice. Just I'm not here. You can't see me.
It's all good. He's as long as he can bring the conversation, it's gonna be great. Even though we would love to see your lovely face, but it's great that you're joining us. I'm glad that we worked this out because I messaged you like a bit ago on Twitter trying to figure out like a schedule thing, and then like you saw like the kind of list of movies that we were going to do, and this is one that you wanted to hop on. So thank you for joining us.
Nice.
Of course.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, like what you do. I know you write. Actually, one of the I saw that you are on Guy at the Movies, and I do some opinion pieces for that site every now and then. So I think that's how I initially started following you on Twitter/X. But whatever. But but whatever you want to kind of fill in the listeners on, like kind of what you do, and feel free to share.
Yeah, sure. So I live in the Philadelphia area. So yeah, I know I'm good friends with Joe, who the guy at the movies. He
Right.
brought me on board. So yeah, I'm a film critic, and I see a lot of movies during the week with Joe too. But yeah, horror
Best
is
job
definitely
ever.
horror is definitely my go-to genre. It's always been it's always been one of my favorites. I know it kind of gets a bad rap every now and then, but I feel like nowadays with Shudder and like A24, I think a lot of people are getting on board kind of late to the party, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think they've gotten well. It's funny too because like you always see stories like Deadline or Hollywood Reporter or Variety will like whenever there's a string of successful horror movies, they always still write about how surprised they are that like this genre is doing so well. Like
Right.
it hasn't. It, of course it's had lulls in the past, like the early '90s. Like people talk about that and like pre-Scream and all that. But lately, I think in the last few years, it's kind of been proving
Had some new
itself to be
life.
very lucrative. Yeah,
Yeah.
very lucrative because they're very cheap to make, and they have like very rabid, fan base. Like people like, I get a lot of shit from my friends because I will even go see a horror movie that I know looks bad, just like no, it's horror. I want to see it.
Right.
And they're like, they feel like that's the only genre that people are like. I don't know how you can say like that movie looks shitty and then be there on Friday night to go see it, but I gotta support.
Yeah. Definitely. That the cheap price tag to a horror movie is like a blessing and a curse at the same time because it is responsible for so many terrible ones being put out because they're such easy movies to make, quote unquote, because you can be making horror movies for cheap. But every once in a while, once you get those diamonds in the rough that really show you can make a great horror movie on a limited budget, it kind of makes it all worth it.
Yeah, I think Blumhouse is definitely the king of that too with low budget. They do a lot of that.
Yeah,
minus
like
one
kind of
certain
micro
recent.
right.
But it's definitely a trendsetter for sure.
Yeah, that certain release had a big 58% drop this weekend. So
yeah, I'm sure it's done at the box office with the Eras Tour concert film now.
Yeah,
just dying a terrible death.
And also Blumhouse, they lost out. We're going to talk about this long, but like we have been talking about the whole Halloween franchise stuff, and Miramax ended up getting the television rights, which makes sense because they co-own the film rights to Halloween. So they said A24 was in the lead for a little bit, but I think what it kind of came down to is it's probably easier if the company they go with like co-owns the film rights too, because they said, and I hate this word, but they said it'll be a lot easier to kind of build a cinematic universe. And I don't know if anyone wants a Halloween cinematic universe. I just can't. Can we just make it? Can we?
Nick Fury at the end.
I know.
It seems like we have a really sporadic multiverse before we ever got a universe of Halloween films, considering all the different timelines there are of what that series.
Like choose your own adventure. That's kind of how that franchise is. But yeah, I still think it's cool that franchise is still viable enough that like, because I know A24 was in the mix for it. Blumhouse wanted it back, and then Miramax ended up winning. And I guess that makes sense because they do want to keep the film and TV stuff probably cohesive and together. But when I read cinematic universe, I was like, ugh.
That's just the last words I want to hear. On that note of A24, though, I don't know if you guys had seen, but I saw like Cam sent me a link. It seemed to be like a premature, I guess, confirmation, but I had read first that A24 won the rights. Like I literally saw posts saying A24 won the rights to the TV rights for Halloween, and then later that day I saw your post about Miramax, so I sent that to them, and they're like, we were kind of had to do a double take. Like we didn't know what to believe for a while.
Yeah, it spread pretty much like a lot of like kind of like scooper kind of like websites and stuff. Like we're posting it, and it was all over like social media, and it seemed legit. But then someone made a good point. Like it wasn't like in Deadline. It wasn't on Hollywood Report. There was no like sites were like real like were posting it yet.
Right.
But they did say that A24 was really close. I think it kind of came down to like I said, they probably Miramax probably sold them more on the idea of like, hey, like we can keep the film and TV thing together, we can build a cinematic universe, blah blah blah. And they're probably like, all right, well, let's just do that then. I would have loved to have seen what A24 would have done with Halloween.
Me too. Especially with the Friday the 13th rights. I think wouldn't be surprised if they had maybe teased a little bit of a crossover with those having those rights.
Oh, so like the TV show they're doing with that.
What could have been?
I mean,
yeah.
What could have been? I mean, I know there were some people I know that were very happy they didn't get it because they were like, I don't want like a artsy prestige Halloween movie.
Or something.
Heaven forbid that they make a good one and that who cares, whatever. But yeah, and it was also funny because A24 also they talked about how they wanted to, I guess they're going to be looking for like bigger IP and all that stuff, and like because it's an independent. I mean, they got to make money, and like I guess their business model can't totally sustain itself because they did lose money on like Beau is Afraid and all that, and
they shot themselves in the foot with that one.
I think their only hit was Talk to Me this year. I mean, a big hit, but like that was
which I got a rewatch of the other night actually.
Nice.
Yeah.
When that news spread, like someone was like, so many film bros are like fainting in their like in their rooms right now because they're like, they're gonna make like action movies and like.
I gotta say, all the posts I saw that basically talked about that talking point of A24 wanting to expand into bigger IPs, I did not see a single positive comment like praising that idea. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of love in any group chats or A24 fan pages, at least none that I've come across. So time will tell what really direction that heads in.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, who knows? We might just get an artsy fartsy action movie, like
maybe
a really
it'll
good
be a
one.
new trend. Yeah, that would be kind of cool, I guess. But
yeah,
I do have faith in that studio.
I do too. I know this is probably a loaded question, Jeremy, but you can list off a couple of favorites if you want. But like, what are some of your like go-to horror movies that you love?
I definitely have to say Scream, the 96 one. I mean, I love the entire franchise, even Scream 3.
Black sheep.
Hey, I got the 4K too, begrudgingly, because I don't really love it either. But I was like, completely.
Is Scream 4 the only one that didn't get the 4K?
Only one that doesn't have a 4K right now.
Yet.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Need that though.
That Vaseline filter
where everyone looks like all glossy and like I don't know what filter that was shot under, but Scream 4. I mean, there's a lot to like about it, but not the way it looks.
Right. Yeah, that's not one of them. I am a big 90s slasher fan. Like I mean it is kind of sci-fi, but The Faculty. I love The Faculty.
Yeah.
Urban Legend, which I know you guys covered not that long.
You need to meet Mark J. Parker. He would love you.
That's his wheelhouse for sure.
Yeah,
it's like 90s, but I mean, it is kind of for me too. That's like, I mean, I loved like 70s, 80s, all that stuff.
Yeah,
but, like we were kind of when I was growing up, like the Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer, Urban Legend, like those were like our horror movies, like it felt like made for us. So I look back on that time very fondly, even if they all aren't great, and I think. That's what we kind of been realizing where we did like an anniversary episode for Urban Legend and like Jackson didn't like hate it, but like he just wasn't like his like totally his bag. But he also like, he was aware like, hey, I probably would have enjoyed this a lot more if I was, actively like kind of around during that time when all these movies were kind of coming out.
I was just a fetus. Unfortunately.
There's definitely a lot of nostalgia attached to my love for those movies. Like I remember like getting Urban Legend from Blockbuster. Like I mean,
and what you can't beat those kind of memories. I have my movies too like that I have nostalgia power to. So I totally get it. And I thought it was a fun time, but ultimately not my cup of tea. But I respect those who enjoyed it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I mean, I love a lot of that. I mean, we're talking about A24. I love a lot of the new like modern movies like Hereditary and
Right On.
Midsummer, however you say.
Love that movie.
Yeah.
And It Follows definitely. I know that's not A24, but I love It Follows.
It feels like A24.
It could have been though, yeah.
It could have been. It's almost like a Mandela effect sort of example. Like I could have sworn that was an A24 when it came out, but
right.
It's strange. Great choice though.
Yeah. But as I was saying, like Scream was definitely my gateway into the horror genre, I would say.
I think it was for a lot of people.
Yeah, and a great gateway
like
for those.
A really great gateway, and like it was kind of cool to kind of see that movie. I mean, I was pretty young, but like to see how that took off, like not like right away, like that opening weekend was not great. And even the people that made the movie were like, well, that was a stinker. Sorry. I guess we fucked that up. And then like the next week, they were like, their numbers went up. And then the next week, the numbers went up again. So it was like a true like word of mouth kind of event. And like it played in theaters for a long time because of that. Like they were doing Scream 2 and Scream was still in theaters. So like that, I mean, that's how, and also the turnaround, like we talked about that before on the show, the turnaround from Scream to Scream 2, like, I mean, in a year basically to get that out.
Yeah.
Similar to the new Scream and Scream 6.
Yeah, 6, yeah. And, you know, what a time to be alive. I mean, it was really fun. Like one of my friends was actually in my room, I think it was like 2 weeks ago. It was like looking through movies and he pulled out like Disturbing Behavior and he's like, I thought you said this movie was trash. And I was like, it is, but it's entertaining trash and I'm happy to own it. I will pop in movies that are entertaining trash because that is also fun sometimes.
Definitely.
Like this isn't great, but it's fun and not a bad way to pass like 90 minutes. So yeah,
exactly.
You know, I mean, every horror movie period has like some bad ones in it.
Oh, without fail.
Yeah,
I mean, like you can pick a bunch of stinkers from the 80s. Like there's a ton, but still a fun period. But yeah, I think we've all the guests that we had on, like they always talk about Scream. They talk about Halloween. Like John Carpenter's got mentioned a lot as like favorite like, horror movie director.
That's right.
We've talked about Wes Craven a lot during all this. So like, I mean, there's a reason why like some of these biggies keep getting mentioned because they were very impactful in their own right. And I mean, God, like something like Scream like set off a whole new like slasher movie movement, which was great to see as well. So but I guess like every genre, like every subgenre of horror has its like time. Like we were talking about over the weekend too. Like we were talking about how like actually, because someone listened to our Lake Mungo episode today and they sent me a text and they found the movie on Tubi and watched it because they were listening to the show and they were like, God, but I remember that whole period of like, because I mean that movie is like mockumentary found footage, it's like a hybrid,
right?
But they were asking me did I love that period of the horror genre, like found footage movies, and I was like, I liked some of them. Like Blair Witch Project was getting brought up a lot online too.
Right. That was ahead of its time even.
Yeah, and I don't love that movie. But I do respect
interesting take. I don't know if we've ever talked about that before. I don't know if I've heard you say that before. Wow, that's almost like horror blasphemy. Okay, sitting on that for a sec.
Jackson almost like hung up. Okay, like I quit.
Whoa. What about did you see the 2016 or 17 iteration, like sequel? What did you think of that one?
Yeah, okay. I
mean, I'm not here saying it's better. I kind of enjoy it though. But
did you like the shadows?
Oh, well, again, talking about entertaining trash. So at least that is like fun, entertaining trash, but it's really bad. It's not. But there's a lot of people. There's like a lot of people online that are like, justice for Book of Shadows. There are people that like love it.
Oh
now.
Wow! Yeah, like, the finger breaking scene is actually pretty memorable from that movie.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Like what I do appreciate about the Blair Witch Project though is that I respect it for what it did for as far as marketing a movie. I sat in that theater thinking that shit was real, and I know a lot of people did when they saw it,
right?
And then felt like they had the carpet pulled off from underneath them when they were like, "Oh wait, I saw that girl in the commercial. Like she's not missing." So fooled us, but like in a really fun way. Like the marketing for that movie was, I think, scarier than the movie itself.
I see. Yeah, fair enough.
And then for me, it was just like listening to people yell at each other for 80 minutes wasn't entirely fun.
That'd be fun to cover in the future.
I know, and then I loved the last 5 minutes because I'm like, oh, this is getting like scary. This is good.
Yeah.
And then it just ends. Yeah. And I was like, oh. Well, that was fun. Glad that happened.
Experiment, but definitely for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, definitely respect what it did for marketing. I mean, I love the way they marketed that movie. I love the way they marketed the first Paranormal Activity, where they were like, request to have this movie in your theaters, like if you want to see it, if you want to
Mhm.
see what the scariest movie of all time is, like quotes, like
Mhm.
you have to demand it, and I thought that was really smart
Right.
too. Also, I mean I actually like that movie more than Blair Witch Project. I'm probably in the minority on that, but
It's definitely scarier. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just fun. Like I think, and it's funny because like when we're going to talk about one of the movies we're talking about today, like horror movie marketing can be really, really good. Like I think that there's some of the trailers that they cut together for certain movies are great. The one we're talking about today had a really good trailer back in the day when it came out 20 years ago. I think that made most people want to go see it and not really look at it as like a kind of blasphemous remake of a really popular lauded horror film. I can see
Right.
your face already.
Yeah.
you already scrunched up your face. All
It
right.
kinda
Well,
hurt.
this is gonna be fun, isn't it?
For sure. Yeah, I'll let you guys lead, but continue.
All right. So today we are talking about two movies because one is actually going to turn 20 tomorrow as of this recording. We're recording on the 16th. Cool. So we're going to be talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which came out in 1974, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003, which is a remake of the 74 film.
The film which you are about to see is an account of the tragedy which befell a group of 5 youths. For them, an idyllic summer afternoon
Is anybody home?
became a nightmare. The events of that day were one of the most bizarre crimes of American history. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Rated R.
You know what? I'll just kind of jump into it. I know I should bring up the original first, but I'm very curious, Jackson.
Yes.
What caused the initial scrunched up face?
Well, I'm fresh off my watch. Like I literally jumped from the screen to the monitor here to talk about the remake today. I just got it in. Watching it, I thought it was going to be my first time, and I realized I had seen it at this point only a few years ago, and that's kind of alarming. I really didn't recognize that I had already seen it, other than until the infamous opening. Not a
good side either,
because there's a few of the Texas. I'm not sure how many, like 2 or 3 that came out in the 2000s, and I had thought I guess I'd seen one of the other ones and not the straight up remake. So anyway, but after that first scene of the hitchhiker blowing her brains out in the back of the van, then I was like, okay, this is definitely the one I've seen. It's quite memorable scene. It's unfortunate it happened so early in the movie. But I did want to just preface before I get into it and say that like I respect this movie for waiting almost 30 years before remaking the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because that's something that we don't get these days, and this has happened again like much sooner after that. Like we literally had another origin story for this character like last year, and another what I remember to be an abysmal
Netflix movie.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't see it.
Not good.
I watched the bus scene on like YouTube just for fun, but
that was fun.
Yeah, fun again. You would get moments of like gross violence, and then you would have really weird cutaways in that same scene that just shied away from some of the violence, which I thought was odd. But anyway, I really was kind of let down by the sequel. It didn't really do much for me. Couple I don't want to be all negative towards it. There were some cool aspects of it, like Leatherface much more menacing, way cooler, I guess. I mean, he's awesome in the original as well, and definitely the star of that show. But in this one, effects and sort of like the makeup department, I think 30 years on, I think did a little bit of a better job with his look and his design. He looked pretty crazy, and I really liked his costume in this. And we see a little bit more of him tearing people up with the actual titular chainsaw than you do in the original, because he is really the only character that falls victim to the chainsaw blade in the original movie, which is funny to think about when he falls and it cuts his leg.
It cuts his leg.
Yeah, I mean, Franklin dies via chainsaw, but you don't really see it actually touching him.
Right.
But obviously he's chewing up a couple more people with it in this movie, which is great. The feel and the look of rural Texas, I think, was done a little bit more like disturbingly in the remake. And the cinematography, I guess, looked a little bit more dirtier. But beyond that, I think that's really where my compliments end for the 2003 remake. I kind of found it a chore, unfortunately, but it could be because like the original is on like my
and you
Mount
just
Rushmore.
Watched it,
yeah, exactly. I really love the original. It's on my Mount Rushmore of 70s and even maybe just like slashers in general. So this definitely felt like I appreciated it. It did add some original scenes. It wasn't just a beat for beat remake. However, those scenes that it kind of explored didn't really do much for me. So that is kind of my overall thoughts on the 2003 remake. I'll happily lend my opinion to the 74 original though later. But Jeremy, what are your thoughts on these two flicks? I guess you have a preference between the two?
I mean, they definitely have different feels, like you were saying.
Right.
I mean, I saw the 1974 one first, of course, like probably most people did. And then I saw the 2003 remake in theaters.
Nice.
I
fun
really
experience.
enjoyed it. I mean, I like both of them. I would say the remake is one of the better horror remakes. Like if you want to talk about all the needless horror remakes out there.
True.
And I mean, this was what Marcus Nispel, I think, the director. He was like a music video director.
Yeah.
I recognize his name. I'm wondering if it was just from this or not, something else.
Well, and then he also did the Friday the 13th remake.
Oh, that's probably That's
Jack says like,
ding, ding, ding.
That is why.
Yeah.
You're like, never mind.
They don't hate, but I prefer this remake. Yeah, I like both of them, but they do have different feels. The remake is definitely like grimier and like slimier.
It's the same cinematographer too, though, which is crazy. Yeah, which is
cool.
Wait, from the original?
Yeah.
Oh, what the hell?
One. So I mean, that's what it is. It's interesting because there's certain aspects, like certain shots, where you're like, oh, like it feels like a callback to the original. Like it looks like, even though like it's definitely not like a shot for shot thing, but like there's certain ways that I think it does look a little grimy. I mean, everyone looks very sweaty. Very dirty.
Yes.
I feel like they were just like spraying like all of them down in between takes. Like, we gotta get you sweatier.
Little mist bottle for all the actors.
Jessica Biel in a t-shirt the whole time. Like it's
just a tight t-shirt.
A tight t-shirt, and they're like, make sure it rains later, guys.
Yes. They were definitely flaunting particular aspects of Jessica Biel throughout this movie. I couldn't help but notice, like, clearly these are the star of the show here. Or at least trying to be.
This was quite the time for Jessica Biel, because she was pretty popular then. I mean, she still is now, I guess. Like, but like she was like, I think this was like after her time on Seventh Heaven, so she was like wanting to do movies and do more like adult. Goodness. And wanted to do like more adult movies and stuff like that. So this was
the one
pretty good one for her to get. I mean, I'll go through some of the reviews later, but a lot of people that didn't like. I mean, a lot of people didn't like the movie. Critics really didn't like it, especially Roger Ebert. We talked about that a lot. He doesn't like a lot of horror movies.
0 stars.
But they did. Yeah, they 0 stars. Yeah, he did actually. So like. But a lot of people talk negatively about how she's used in the movie, how they kind of like feels like, I think one person said like seems like she's being exploited on film because of the way, especially towards like she's in the white top and it's tight and all this, I didn't get that vibe. I got pretty good, strong final girl vibes from her. Now I don't like some of the decisions she makes early in the movie, because like a lot of this wouldn't happen if she wasn't so insistent on them like not dumping her and like all this other stuff. Like a lot of the stuff happens because they're like, she uses like her girlfriend magic to be like, yo, like I know they're all telling us that we should leave, but like, what are you gonna do, Kemper? And like, that's a lot of like her energy. But I really don't get the vibe that like she didn't seem exploited to me in the movie. But
I'm grateful for the lack of like gratuitous sex scenes in this movie, minus like the aggressive like making out in the opening scene. Like that was just ridiculous. But beyond that, there's really nothing after that short sequence, which I was grateful for. And honestly, thinking about it now, kind of rare for 2000s horror. So applaud the filmmakers for not including anything like that. She is also much better than I think this screenplay allows her to be. Some of her dialogue, although her delivery is fine for what she has to work with, like some of her dialogue and incessant screaming is a little bit much for me. I lost count of how many times she yells Kemper's name, like while they're looking for him.
While they're looking for him.
I made sure to note it because I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, oh my God. But she does fine for what she's given. Definitely, she is a good actress.
Yeah, I thought she's. I mean, I think it's hard too because like it's hard not to compare her to Marilyn Burns, who plays Sally in the original, who goes. I mean, as you've seen the original, goes through the ringer by the end of it, and that is like feels like genuine, legit fear. Like, I mean, I think that Marilyn Burns in those respects is a bit better than Jessica Biel was, comparatively. But I guess it's like two different performances too. But like. I feel like Marilyn Burns, like her performance in Texas Chainsaw in the original, stays with you. Like you feel mentally and physically exhausted just watching her after it's all over. Like that's like vibe I get, and I didn't really get that vibe from Jessica Biel though.
No, I feel like partly, and this is something I took note of too. Just comparing chase sequences in that movie, in the original and this remake, and something I think that might lend to why you feel so much more exhausted for. Is it Marilyn Burns?
Marilyn
Burns,
the
character, because there are so many cuts in the chase scene in the 2003 remake. There's a couple where the camera cuts like 20 times in like a short 30-second sequence, whereas it stays much more on the actress, on Marilyn Burns, and Leatherface chasing her in the dark in the original, like first long chase in the original. Like the camera is much more longer takes. I'd be interested to see the average shot length between these two movies, because you feel exhausted because you feel like you've seen her run and be chased for such a long time with such few cuts in between. Whereas this one, it's like, who knows like how long they're stopping in between this chase to just get different angles and whatnot. But I wouldn't be surprised if maybe that lends to that feeling that you have.
The remake definitely feels like one long chase set piece, but I'm here for it. Like I love a long chase.
Agreed. Yes. Mentally taxing.
I could definitely see people finding it repetitive though. Yeah.
For sure.
What as far as like, you know, we have two different families, the ones in the original then we have the people we meet here. I will, my opinion, and you guys can give yours as well. Like, that is one thing. I mean, the Leatherface stuff is good in this. In the remake, I actually agree with you. I think he does a really good job.
Agreed.
Portraying him, and he's much more aggressive and physically imposing. I mean, and I like that part of it. And then Arlie Army is also good as Sheriff White, which I think is a very different take than like the Cook. Like I guess that's kind of like the closest comparison to like those two characters.
Yeah.
It's just that everyone else isn't that memorable. The other, you know, beyond those two, and I think, you know, the hitchhiker in the original movie is pretty scary and freaky in his own right. Before you even meet Leatherface.
Yes.
But yeah, that's kind of where one of the things I was like, oh well, it doesn't really match up in that regard. But what Arlie Army does in this movie, because I mean, credit him to some amazing line delivery. I was like, most of the stuff that he was doing in the movie cracked me up.
Agreed.
There's that one moment where like she, one of the redhead girl, I forget her name, but she's like saying
Pepper.
like this all, she's like this all seems so wrong, and he basically said like he has more respect for a dead body than like anyone, and then he just cuts to him being like, "Don't put that dirty thing in my," like it's all upset
in the back of his car, throw it in the trunk. Yes, that was pretty great. His delivery is honestly more comical but unintentionally, but not in a detrimental way. It's just he's, I think, very much honed in on his Drill Sergeant Hartman performance from Full Metal Jacket in this movie.
Sure.
I couldn't help but compare. Could be because I haven't really seen him in much else between those two movies. So, but no, when he's barking at them, it's definitely gave me Full Metal Jacket vibes, which I was there for. He's a good presence in the movie.
That scene with Arlie Ermy and Morgan, I think his name is.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, Jonathan Tucker.
Yeah, in the van. That is so uncomfortable, and like Arlie Ermy just owns that scene. Like it's like he's gonna explode at any minute.
Yeah.
He's also darkly funny. Yeah,
darkly funny. And honestly, I actually think both of them are very good in that scene, because you actually can feel like how uncomfortable and like frightened Morgan is.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do think when he's turned the tables on him, when he like pulls the gun on him, and they're like, no, of course that's not gonna this is not gonna go well for you, and now you're fucked. And you can just kind of feel like he is darkly funny, but then he's also very menacing too.
Deranged.
Like when he has the when he has the girls like they're laying on the floor basically, and like and while Morgan's in the van, I don't know. He was pretty imposing in his own right. And like I said though, I mean, I guess comparing him to like the cook in the original, who freaks me out because I think it's funny that he has like a moral code compared to like the rest of them, where he like he doesn't take much pleasure in killing, like he says.
Yes. Just serving him up.
Just serving him up, and that is what makes him creepy. Is that he thinks that he's not as loony as the rest of them.
That's a great point, actually.
and he's incredibly loony. Like when they're in the truck and he's like poking her. While he's like telling her to calm down or whatever, and like he's talking to her like all nice, and then like gets aggressive and like keeps doing it. Like it's that stuff like freaks me out about him, and it's more like I guess subtle than like him being just outwardly like creepy, but like like that character like creeps me out.
He's kind of like almost not quite, but a little bit like a wolf in sheep's clothing, where he just comes across as so. I guess genuine until you really do get a look behind his mask and see that how insane he really is, and yet he seems to be oblivious to that too. It's a great point. He is I guess a standout character in that original, but whereas in this one I feel like you really get Leatherface and the sheriff Arlie Ermy. Beyond that, for at least for the antagonists, nobody else really seemed to be memorable, at least not for me. I didn't want to gloss over though, Gaius, your experience with both. I know Jeremy and I got to talk a little bit about our first times with this movie, but what about you? I guess you can answer for both.
Yeah, I saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre pretty young.
Mm-hmm.
Older than Hellraiser, not 7 or 8, but I think maybe 13. Like when I first saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it was just one of those horror movies too that a lot of people who I knew that were older like always talked about, and made it seem like it was like the most disturbing thing they've ever seen. Like, and so of course that makes you like want to see it more when people talk about it like that. I remember the first time I saw it though, and like I said, this is a compliment. It is very exhausting. Like you feel like you've gone through like by the end what you got. Basically, and like I felt like pretty uncomfortable when it was all over. Like what did I just watch? But I mean, there's a reason it's a classic though. I mean, and I also love. We brought it up talking about another movie on one of our episodes, but it has this reputation for like being like gory, but it's not. Like there's not a lot of gore in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I think it makes you think that you're seeing more than you're actually seeing. Right, it's so kind of unrelenting, and I think that works in its favor a lot.
Definitely,
because there's very little. I mean, I think the biggest blood thing is probably when the hitchhiker cuts himself and like smears it on the van. It's like I don't know how much, and then you see someone like when he hits knocked with a hammer and stuff, but it's not like an excessively gory movie.
No,
so, like at
definitely,
all.
And the reason for that I find is hilarious. So Tobe Hooper, obviously the director of the original and writer, for whatever reason thought that he was able to going to be able to craft Texas Chainsaw Massacre as a PG movie, because back then there was PG and R. I'm not sure if there were any ratings in between. And so because of that, he intentionally didn't include a lot of gore in the movie, thinking that he could get away, or that would lead the studio to agree on the movie being PG, and definitely not the case. It ended up, I think, he had to make some cuts to avoid the NC-17 rating and get it knocked down to an R, and that's the story behind why there's not much gore in the original Texas Chainsaw, which if he had just known what he was going to get into and just added some more gore, I think that would have been like that extra half a point in that movie that I would give it if there was just a little bit more. Because me, like, I need that stuff. But
he's like, I need my entrails. Where are my entrails?
Yeah, exactly. And I read on the note of that too. There's a dad. I can't remember. It might be Morgan. Who's the last surviving man in the remake?
Well, is it technically the blonde hair guy? Because we beat him. I mean,
I can't really tell at that point. It's so dark.
No, I guess it's all dark and good. I think Morgan is actually the last. You're right, the last survivor.
Okay,
not by a lot, but
the scene where he gets like hung up on the chandelier at the end, like I think he's handcuffed and he kind of
and he like does
and then he saws him. I guess they cut out or edited it so that you don't see his like guts and entrails fall out. So I kind of noticed that the scene was absent of gore too, and I was really expecting it. Watching him, Leatherface cut him in half, I was like, oh, this will be good and juicy. But you don't really get a whole lot. But I guess that was cut. I read that, which unfortunate, but still,
you're
whatever.
Like, so,
there's lots in the remake, so
yeah, there is a lot. With the remake, like Jeremy, I saw it in theaters. It was like opening night kind of thing.
I knew without asking.
with a group of friends, and honestly, it was a fun experience. Like that theater, like loved it. Like I mean, they were. I mean, it was. So she shoots herself. By the way, apparently one of my friends that listens to the show is one of their favorite sound bites of you, Jackson, is like we were bringing up Texas Chainsaw, and you were trying to like I was like, have you seen the remake? And you're like, oh, I don't know. And you kind of pause, and you're like, wait, is that the one where the girl pulls the gun out of her vagina? Like,
yes, I remember that conversation. Hard to forget.
During the theater when she shoots herself in the head, I couldn't tell. I don't know if they thought the scene looked ridiculous or it was just uncomfortable laughter, but people were like laughing when she shot herself.
Really?
And then the camera goes out of the back of her head and stuff.
Awesome.
They're laughing
shot,
at
by
it.
The way.
Yeah, it's a really cool shot. But I couldn't tell if it was like they just think this is hilarious or if they're just like
uncomfortable laughing. Yeah. I don't know what's I don't think the scene anyway is like trying to come across as funny by any means. So I think it was, if I were to guess, the audience being uncomfortable. But that's kind of funny. I didn't expect that sort of reaction.
Maybe that's a teenager. Maybe that's a teenager thing.
Yeah, true.
I think that could have been very much.
I bet you're right.
Like immature teenager. Like I don't know.
Right, and I'm sure a lot of people were expecting her to brandish that gun from where she ends up getting it from, and so that definitely would have been probably come across as odd at the time. On the note, though, that shot
happened a lot, though. That's not happened a lot.
Definitely a memorable scene early on. But on the note of that shot, you said of the camera, like it. Like goes through the back of her head and out of the van, which is an awesome shot. And then I was complimenting, like just taking note of like how I thought impressive that camera shot was. And then right after that, you get another really memorable thing that I don't think I've ever seen in a horror before is you get a front facing shot of the hitchhiker who just killed herself. And you get the smoke from the gun coming out of her mouth. That was a super cool shot, actually. Really like that.
So you thought you were in for something real good when you got you're like, yeah, this movie's gonna
rock. Not necessarily. The dialogue, even in the van in the beginning, I was like, okay, this is very 2000s horror. I had a little bit of an expectation, but that being said, there was some good directing and camera work early on too. So I had enough of a red flag, I guess, for my own personal experience, like knowing what I was getting into early on. But that's not to say that there was nothing enjoyable. There were some cool choices made too.
I have a friend that thinks like the remake looks too like, even though we said that it's grimy and stuff like that, like I have a friend that thinks like it looks too polished and doesn't really look like it's set in the 70s, other than like, oh, look at their outfits, look at this. It like feels, they say it still feels very too modern, even though it's set in like, the 70s. And I can kind of see it. I mean, it wasn't like a nitpicky thing for me to be like, oh, like
agreed, me either.
Brand new, but like I understood the point though that it is a very clean looking. In some ways, it's very grimy, and in other ways, it's also a clean, polished. Especially compared to the original, which like the original could almost look like a stuff film because it is
like a stuff film. Yeah, you're right.
Because it's so cheap. I mean, it was like $140,000 budget, and I mean,
awesome.
That's like nothing. It made over $30 million too when it came out. So
it makes that movie even more impressive.
But yeah, I also too after I saw the remake in theaters, like I remember being like, oh, I liked it. I saw it twice in theaters. I liked it a lot. But this was the first time I ended up watching the original and the remake back to back. I'd never done that.
Oh, okay.
And there are I mean, I still think it's a fun movie, but you definitely do see more flaws when you go from that watch to this one, like right away.
Without a doubt.
I'm sure.
It's like almost watching like the original Halloween and then watching Halloween 2. Even though Halloween 2 takes place on the same night, you're like, this is a different beast entirely.
I'm excited to first watch that in here in probably a week or two. I'm really excited.
I mean, I'll be very curious to see what you think about Halloween 2.
I have a big Halloween binge coming up. I'm gonna probably get like 6 or 7 movies in, so it'll be a big I'm excited. But you're right, definitely. I don't think the remake really holds a candle to the original Texas Chainsaw. That being said, there's still cool things about it, and I'm glad it's not a shot for shot remake. but hard to argue that it's better than the original, at least if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. It is. I mean, it definitely is. In the grand scheme of things, it's not going to go down as like a classic. I mean, I guess what it did do, for better or worse, it started a huge trend of studios
for better or for worse is a good point.
Because after Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I feel like every studio, I mean, a lot of them came from Platinum Dunes, which did this movie. They also did like Amityville Horror and The Hitcher.
Was that Michael Bay's production?
Yeah, Michael Bay's company. Yeah. And you can, I mean, even though he didn't direct this, you can, it has Michael Bay isms, like all that. Yeah.
It is more slick looking. Like it's very like well put together, but it is kind of like gritty and, you know, kind of grimy, but at the same time.
Yeah. And I don't know if you guys like that it spawned a whole bunch of horror movie remakes after this. And to the point where they weren't even just getting like big titles. They were like, "Yo, let's remake like When a Stranger Calls." Like, you know, they were just they were like grabbing any one that they could find. And Prom Night, a remake in name only, like The Fog. Like, and then some of them are fun. Like I love House of Wax. I think that's a fun like slasher chase movie. But yeah, like a lot of them. I mean, because this movie was a huge hit. Like it got really bad reviews, but it made a lot of money. And
like many 2000s horrors, very much the same story. Yeah.
And honestly, Texas Chainsaw as a franchise, other than that first movie, wasn't really known for making like a ton of money. I mean, they like a lot of the sequels weren't like hits. So like I think that's also why I think I would maybe care now, but at the time when they were like, "Oh, we're gonna remake it," I didn't think it was complete like if you were to tell me in 2003 that they were going to remake Halloween at that point, I'd be like, no, don't touch it. But like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, even though I think it's a near perfect horror movie, I was like, oh, maybe they could do something with it. Because like the rest of the franchise isn't that viable to me. I don't really love a lot of the sequels. So that's why I was pretty open to them kind of putting their own spin on it. And I'm glad, like you said, that it wasn't just like a beat for beat like remake, like where like they just, I mean, there are certain like homages to like the original and like some of the kills and shots and all that. That's another thing that's kind of like when you're comparing the movie. So the scene where the guy gets hit with the hammer in the original compared to what happens to Kemper, I think it's a lot stronger and more powerful in the original movie than when it happens to Kemper in the remake. Even though I do think it's kind of funny that they have the reaction shot of the cartoon reacting to it when he gets hit in the back of the head. But yeah, it's more like violent. It seems like more aggressive in the remake. But like, I love in the original because you don't really expect it to happen. Like when you first see it, you're just like, oh shit.
And subtly, you were warned about it before too, and you still don't see it coming because they're talking about it. You still don't see it coming.
Yeah. And the fact that it happens like so close to like, you know, she's right outside, and like it's like it's so close, and like it's just like so jarring in that respect. And I love that there's no like big stinger like when he comes out, he just comes out, and it's just like, oh shit. And then like watching the dude like fucking convulse on the floor afterwards is like makes that scene even worse.
The pigs squealing too.
Then the pigs squealing,
effective and unsettling.
Might seem like a subtle different or a small, I guess, difference in a similar scene, but something as a detail as small as like the wide angle shot of Leatherface slamming that metal door closed after killing the first guy in the original. And when you get that scene in the remake, it's much close up. You like don't even really see the frame of the door. You just like see him pulling it closed. I'm like much better than in the original. I like that they include that shot in it because it's such an iconic moment from the original. It's cool for them to pay a nod to in the remake, but like just a small example of something that I found made the original more impactful.
I agree.
I do like that entrance of Leatherface in the remake with the amputee guy like pounding his cane.
To like basically like
summoning him, basically
like summoning him, like basically like get out here,
unleashing the beast, and then the door opening. I do think that's pretty effective. I mean,
I will say like even watching it for this, and then I remember that moment in the theater too, because it felt like when you were watching, like, oh, something's about to happen. Like you were like, and as soon as that door opens, and like you just hear him rev up, you're like, ah, like it's so like that scene is probably one of the better scenes in the movie.
Agreed.
And then homie gets his like thing cut off, like because he was like, I actually love that. I love that shot too of him like running through like
laundry,
all the the laundry, the sheets are hanging up. Like there's some really good that you can tell like Marcus Nespel was a music video director because it looks like it's music video directors like get a lot of crap sometimes, but they can really frame some really interesting shots. And there is a lot of like great camera work and stuff, like good setups in the remake. But yeah, that's one of them. I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to bring it up. But yeah, he's basically like waking him up, like waking up the beast like to come out. Yeah, I love that moment. I think it's a great scene. And honestly, too, I remember when the guy he's on the meat hook, right? And she's trying to like lift him off of it. And that was another thing. That was another thing in the theater where people were like laughing, but it felt like uncomfortable.
I felt like I could feel that. And the salt. Oh, the big handful of salt on his stumpy leg, man.
And I think what makes it unintentionally funny is because she's like trying to get him off, and she's like, "Move your body," like basically trying to get him to help. And he's like, and then I love when like he falls back on it, and he's just like, "Fuck, just kill me."
Yeah, just anything but that. Just stab me.
Don't try to like pull me off of this. But I don't know why she had to like stab him so slowly. Like it's very like.
And it looks like she gets some center mass more than like in the heart to me anyway. I thought she was gonna go for like it looked like she was getting ready to stab him in the stomach and like anywhere but there. But it seems to have killed him very quickly. So if anything, I guess whoever it is, I'm a little bit lost as to who was who at certain parts, but was it
so Andy is the blonde. Andy's the blonde,
right.
Mike Vogel.
Yes. If anything, he had he gets put out of his misery pretty quick, but he does spend quite a good chunk actually in that misery. So,
also another cool moment from the remake too, because it is really cruel and jarring, is when Leatherface turns around and Aaron sees that he's wearing her boyfriend's face. That is also effective too. I thought that was pretty.
Yeah, that was a creepy touch.
Yeah, and she knows for sure that Kemper, is definitely dead. I thought that was pretty good. I know there's a lot of really good isolated moments in the remake, but I just don't know if I watched when I was watching for this. I was like, I don't know if as a whole, like it's still fun, but like it's like as a whole, there's certain things like that. You're right. Some of the screenplay is not great. Some of the dialogue is not great.
Yeah.
Maybe we're being too picky, but I mean that there are some cringy lines that they had to. I think Pepper gets a lot of them. I mean, they give a lot of they give a lot to her, and also kudos to her because I feel like she was 100% invested in being frightened for the movie too. Like she does a lot of
summoning her inner scream queen for sure. Notably, like after the hitchhiker shoots herself, like she has this time to run out of the van, throw up, sit there for a sec, huff and puff, and then she starts screaming her head off.
Well, because she has a brain matter on her arm.
Yeah, for sure. But that part I thought was like a little bit just odd timing. But she does, she stretches her lungs quite a bit in this movie. So great job to Erica. I wouldn't know how to pronounce her last name. Learson.
I think she was actually in Book of Shadows.
She is in Book of Shadows. I just pulled her up, and I was like, well, at least you know.
Neat.
That was like 3 years before that too.
On the note of like cringy dialogue, there is one that I wrote down that I just had to touch on for a minute. So you know how there's this little subplot, I guess, where they mentioned in the beginning. So are they coming back from Mexico, or are they on their way?
I think they're coming back. They're coming back because they're going to a concert. They're going.
Right. Exactly.
Leonard Skinner concert. Right?
Leonard Skinner. Yeah.
Okay, I found myself wondering who they were going to see, and I didn't catch that line of dialogue if they had mentioned who they were going to see in concert. So I'm glad you said that, Jeremy.
Yeah.
So they're coming back from Mexico, and they have this piñata with appropriately mentioned 2 pounds of marijuana inside of it. And there's a line where Kemper says, like, so he kind of hides it from Aaron, Jessica Biel's character, that's what that is in it. And when she discovers that it is full of marijuana after he sort of like half baked lied to her, he is kind of like reasoning with her about why he got it, and he goes, I did it so we could start our life. It's like you're gonna get your big start together by selling 2 pounds of marijuana. Like, I just thought that was hilarious unintentionally.
I smuggled marijuana for you.
And I get it's the 70s, so different context there, but I'm like, that just seems kind of insignificant.
Yeah, very much so.
But yeah,
Kemper was not a good guy. Yeah.
No, exactly. But he did chuck it, which was a pretty, ballsy move.
And he does end up, for better or worse, even though, like I said, most of this is Aaron's fault, that they would just that she just insists that they do this the right way.
Right.
He does after that, because he can't really like defy her after that. He lied to her. He's a pretty good boyfriend to her after that. Like, and she's like, Kemper, like when they're like basically like, yo, like we don't got, who put you in charge? He's like, all right.
Right.
I also love, because when I was watching this, I love characters like Morgan, because I feel like if I was in the friend group, that's exactly how I would be. Like when he was like, yo, give me the keys to the van, they went to go look for Kemper. And she's like, no. And he's like, because basically his plan was to like probably just leave. And that is a pretty realistic thing to do, because I think I would be like, yo, can I also have the keys to the van? Just in case.
Well, the keys are not really important, since Jessica Biel can hotwire any car. Basically, I thought it was hilarious that the screenplay demands her to hotwire 2 vehicles in the remake.
She had older brother. She has older brothers, right? And then she mentioned, and then she mentioned about like the hot wire when she said she was in juvie. She was in juvie, so like they always they throw like
okay, fair enough. I was not paying attention when that line was tossed out there, so I was kind of just wondering, like, why do you know how to do this, and why are you doing it twice?
In your defense, it is a really random. I mean, I know they have to explain why she can do it, but it feels very like random. Just like,
once is impressive enough, yeah.
Like, I really didn't even need to know how she knew how to pick a lock. I'm like, whatever, she can do it.
Her character is not consistent with somebody who would have spent any time in juvie. She's more or less angelic in this movie and trying to do the right thing. And
the character, the girl that went to juvie would have been okay with the smuggling of the marijuana.
Exactly, just not a convincing trait for her character at all. But I mean, they tried.
Make more sense.
Well, Pepper's she's a hitchhiker herself, right?
They
have her doing the hot wiring.
Yeah.
And she lasts quite a while.
Yeah, she does last. Of course, she knows she's gonna die, but like she does last a bit.
Another death, which I thought the filmmakers kind of wimped out on.
Hers, because you don't really like
more.
You don't really see a lot.
Or anything really. You get a visual of what's happening, but you just don't really see
feathers or something from her coat, like fly.
Yeah, you see like the coat, like the feathers come up from her coat.
Yeah,
right. I was kind of wondering what that was.
Yeah,
actually, but yeah, I thought maybe a stray chicken had wandered into the frame or something. I was like, where are these coming from?
Right.
Why are you wearing a coat in the middle of Texas in the summertime?
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
I will say, and I don't know if you guys agree or not. As far as just like, I mean, I guess you're not really watching the original for like all the characters, but I will say I think the remake does a better job of it's not like the best like narrative, like they don't have like big personalities, but you do kind of connect with them more than the main characters from the original movie.
Right.
I do like that aspect. I love that there's not a Franklin in the group.
I was wondering if we were going to get a Franklin. I was looking at everybody in the van and I'm like, okay, this is not how they're going to go. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Franklin.
No,
I don't think anyone is. No one is. The first time my buddy saw the original, he texted me and he was like, I've never wished death upon a character more in my life. Like when he died, I was just like, cool.
That character alone makes you side with Leatherface in the original. It's like, yes, man, get him. It's like, why hasn't he died earlier?
And then I always like laugh unintentionally. It's like after he gets cut, right? And the hitchhiker gets out the car and then they cut to him again and he's just doing the most like over. I mean, I know he got cut, but like really over dramatic, like shaking.
Yes, it is comical. Yeah,
like you can tell they only tolerate him because she's related to him, and they're like, she doesn't have a choice, and they're probably like, all right, well, we want you to go. Then like Franklin has to come,
right?
It starts off right away. Like, I mean, as soon as you see him fall out of his wheelchair, like they're like, this guy is not going to be fun
No,
at
he's
all.
a burden.
He's not gonna last long.
Whatsoever. Yeah, I can't think of anyone that actually likes Franklin, and I guess that character was written that way. I don't know.
Okay, well, hey, the actor blew him out of the water. I thought he did a great job portraying somebody unquestionably annoying. So props to that gentleman.
And the movie lets him live a while. Like,
a long time.
Yeah.
Like
he's one of the top two.
Yeah, he doesn't go first. Like, it's crazy.
Part of that because he's kind of marooned, but
yeah, I mean, he gets it pretty bad. Like when she starts yelling at him, when she's like basically like, I can't push you around. Like I can't. Like I was like, dude, just leave him. Like at this point, like
she's literally pushing him through the woods, right? And
at night.
At night.
Like,
by moonlight.
By moonlight. I think it's ridiculous, dude. What are speaking of that scene where the hitchhiker, what was when you first saw the movie, like what was your thoughts of that scene where they pick up the hitchhiker and that kind of gradually unfolds into something pretty weird?
That actor, I don't know where they found him, but
probably Texas.
He's so well cast. I mean, he doesn't even need to bring out the scalpel or whatever it is. Like,
right.
He's all creepy, like by himself.
That little bag he has on him with the weird shit in it. Like,
oh my god, yeah. And then he takes the picture, and it's very different from the remake with
yes.
Yeah,
I was gonna ask you guys, like, like one's more effective than the. I mean, I guess one's more effective than the other. I would say, but like,
I liked how they didn't just retrace
copy it.
Yeah. I liked that they had like a survivor, but yeah, going back to the original, like that's definitely like the more effective one, I would say, just because you know what's coming. Like he's kind of like he sets up that dread that is coming for Sally and her friends.
Yes.
Then they go get some barbecue, right? Or they get gas.
Oh yeah, they stop to get gas, and that's what I love about that movie too. Is like when you're watching, is like all these like how it's all set up where they've run into these people already. Like the hitchhiker, and then like when they go get gas, they got the cook now. Like it's all kind of like the way it's set up. It's set up for them to end up in doom, and it's like really unsettling.
It's like they really from early on it's clear they've wandered into the wolf's den. In the original, like everyone they encounter is eventually going to come back and show their face again for terrifying reasons.
There's one moment with the hitchhiker that kind of got me today is when he takes basically the sack off of her and he sees that it's her, that he already like encountered her earlier, and he's just like, she starts screaming because she sees him like that. Like that is really freaking. He's like, I thought you was in a hurry. like that.
Yeah.
Like, so
I remember seeing the original for the first time and being so just like kind of put off by that interaction they have with the hitchhiker that I remember at the time thinking like I don't remember like seeing a movie of this era like so grounded in realism. Like they really are kind of letting it fly with like the genuine oddness of that character, and it didn't really feel scripted. And I was like, this just feels like what you might encounter if you were to pick up a random hitchhiker in like rural United States. Like it really felt like it was going off script, and I think like obviously to quite a good effect in the original. And I didn't really encounter too many of those moments in the remake. It really did feel like we are following a screenplay in the remake, whereas it feels like they just had basic plot points to go off of in the original, and it added that authenticity much more so, and most I guess encapsulated in that scene with the hitchhiker. He is damn naturally creepy, like you said. Wherever they found him, whoever the casting director was, might have been Toby Hooper for all I know.
Yeah, bravo.
They couldn't have found someone better.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too because talking about like remake, like a lot of it feels like scripted, like this is a movie. It's also missing, even though I agree with Jeremy, I love a good long chase scene, like little stalk and chase scenes are like bread and butter of some horror movies. I think it's a kind of a detriment that there isn't like something similar to like the dinner scene from the original in this.
I was thinking that as well.
and I know they kind of they do that in Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning. I think they realized they had to like throw that in to kind of like because they didn't do it in the remake. But yeah, I think while watching it today, even though I loved chase scenes and stuff like that, there's something about like the last 15 minutes or so that just feels very basic and generic. It's just like one chase after the other, basically. Whereas, you know, the last 10 minutes or so of the original is just an unrelenting like terror, pretty much.
Right.
And I think that is what the remake kind of lacked. Having that kind of moment.
Right.
Overall.
Yeah. Jessica Biel gets a couple moments throughout the big final chase to like kind of take shelter and do some hiding, where you're right, in the original it's just nonstop relentless chasing, and I guess adds that effect that you're so wiped by the end of it because you feel like you've been running right alongside Sally. But Aaron in this one gets ample time to sort of hide, and it never really goes her way, but at least she makes it out.
She hides in a meat
in the meat locker, right? Yeah.
I was expecting her to pull it and like enclose herself in it. I was like, oh, do that. But probably wasn't.
Jackson's like, I wish I wrote this movie. Yeah. I and also, I mean, I just speaking on the dinner scene from the original movie. It's even today, like watching it, it's just like it's so. What a great way to end your movie. Like that kind of like, you know, the moment from like when she runs into the cook again at the barbecue place, and we, you know, of course, realize that he's in on it with all of them too. So all that stuff, like till the credits roll, basically, or when it cuts to black, like that, it's so like I said, you feel uncomfortable, you feel exhausted. It's a common, and I also love like the shots, like he gets like really close up on her face and like her eye, and like and how like the kind of music is kind of cut into how he's cutting it to like really make you feel like what she's feeling. Yeah, that scene stuck with me for a while after I saw it the first time, and like I think probably the best thing in the movie overall for overall like impact. But yeah, and then you get to stuff with the grandpa, and you're like, well, what's gonna happen there? When you first watch it, you're like, oh, he's alive. Oh god, like poor thing.
It's like family dinner.
Yes,
your average Texas sit down meal. I was thinking watching the remake, like this movie, and of course combined with the original, and Killer Joe do a great job at deterring people to like ever visit rural Texas. It just looks like an absolute shithole.
It does.
It's a terrifying place.
It looks like it's humid every day.
Yeah.
There's like no
taken over by psychopaths according to film. Just a nasty place, and no offense to if there's any rural Texans listening here, but God, man, film does not make your part of the country look enticing. That's for sure. Certainly not this movie.
And both movies end up in kitchens.
That's true. Oh yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
True.
Killer Joe. Oh man, with Gina Gershon. Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
That's a whole.
We covered that on an earlier episode, Jeremy. If you didn't get a chance to listen to that episode, we did a deep dive on Killer Joe. It was great. Love that movie.
That was my first time watching it for the podcast, and I was warned about certain scenes, but not what they were, but like warned about them. And I was like, oh, that's what they were talking about.
There's a chicken wing.
There's a chicken wing. I was like, oh, there we go.
Never look at them the same again after that.
No, definitely not. What do you think? God. What do you guys think ever happened to that poor semi truck driver at the end of the original?
The original that saves her and then like
do we see fall victim? I can't remember. I watched this a couple weeks ago now.
No, he
just runs away.
Right, yeah.
He
hopefully changed his trucking route if he did survive.
He left his Black Maria truck behind and everything.
Yes.
It's something oddly comical about that, because like it seems like, you know, he's helping her, and then that other truck comes, and then she's like, all right, peace, and she like kind of jumps like, I mean,
doing whatever it takes.
I forgot how long it takes Sally to get into the back of the pickup truck too. Like that
right?
pickup truck was really patient. Like she takes a few tries, and then she finally gets in, and you know.
Yeah, I'd have been going like creeping along, like getting, you know, hitting the throttle a little bit as she's trying to get in, but she cuts it real close, no time to spare. If Leatherface hadn't cut himself like just a few minutes earlier, I think she was toast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but just absolutely thrilling ending though. Like she literally by like a hair's width gets away, and then the absolute like terrified, frenzied laughter that she is like emitting,
like
it's like you feel for her so much. When
that's also stuff that doesn't feel scripted either. It just feels like she was like
exactly.
It feels like maybe as an actress she was just physically and mentally exhausted, like for real. Like this is like, not acting anymore.
Exactly.
Like because I can't imagine. I mean, I guess you know what you're signing up for when you do a movie like that, but it's like I can't imagine any of that being fun to film. I don't know, maybe it was, but like because she definitely goes through a lot. But it's like I can't imagine just calling cut and then like laughing after.
I'm like passing out.
But like you said, I guess if you pick up a script that said it's called the Texas
Chainsaw Massacre.
Like there's only one way that's gonna go.
Right.
Yeah, and the whole thing with Grandpa too with the hammer, like even like the fact that it's not hard, like they just comes like dropping it on her head, like makes it worse than like if you were to watch someone just like getting hit over and over again. Like I was like, can this girl like escape already? Like,
right.
And I do love that when she does this jump out the window, that there's like kind of silence for a bit. They don't come out like right away. So you're kind of like, oh, like I wonder what's going to, and then like you kind of see him before you even hear like the revving, like the chainsaw and stuff. Like I thought that was really effective too. And it's so brutal watching him just cut at her back while he's chasing her.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you thought you'd already gone through a lot, you're like, no, this isn't over yet. Jesus. Like poor girl, go. But you don't really have a lot of moments like that in the remake, I guess. Like that really kind of stand out in a way that like it make you feel that way, I guess.
You know what I was expecting? Because I remember I have seen another one of these, or at least parts back in the day. I thought the remake, the one that we're covering today, is the one where he's hiding in the back seat with the chainsaw at the end. Which one is that? Because I was fully expecting that.
The beginning.
That's Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning.
I'm not sure when I would have seen that, but I was expecting that ending in this one. I was blending which movie I was watching.
That's how Jordana
Brewster. That's how he kills her girl Mia from the Fast and the Furious.
Okay, I didn't realize it was her. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I always really like that ending because I'm kind of a sucker for like endings where nobody kind of makes it out. I don't know what it is. Yeah.
So when I saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning, because I was like, you kind of forget when you're watching it, it's a prequel, and I was like, I guess no one can really escape. Like they all have to die. And I didn't I remember when she does die in the movie, like it genuinely like surprised me because I was like, one, first of all, it's very, I think, kind of brave because every horror movie doesn't do that. They would have like let her get away, maybe she never spoke of it again, like whatever, she never went back to Texas. But the fact that like they just like, you think that our final girl is gonna make it, and then like nope, it's a brutal death. That's a pretty brutal death too, and like, that's crazy. I mean, like it makes sense for Aaron to have gotten away in this remake.
Yes,
but like when you're watching, but when you're watching the prequel, you're like, I guess it's like almost like when you're watching like Rogue One. And you're like, well, I guess this has to end poorly for them.
Exactly.
A New Hope.
So you can imagine like when I'm watching the remake today, and like the scene where Aaron is like reversing over the sheriff. She runs over him 3 times. So like she like kind of puts her arm behind and like is like reversing. I'm like, how do you not know that he's in the back seat? Because I'm expecting that he's back there gonna like, slice her up from the back. I'm like, that is such an oversight. You'd think you'd notice him, but then obviously when that doesn't happen, I was like, okay, so I got to take away that, I suppose. But yes, like you really feel that car bounce as it goes over the sheriff. Like, okay, obviously not a guy you're rooting for, but tough ending for him for sure.
And she takes the baby, right?
What's that?
Yeah, she does. She does take the baby.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
There's the whole subplot with the baby, and then and then also the Jedediah is actually nice. He's weird, but like he's not. Apparently not as bad as
prosthetic teeth.
Oh man.
Also, that's a little kid from the Ring too. From the Ring. So like.
That's right.
Yeah. So he had a good little horror movie run.
Interesting. The Ring I'm due for a rewatch on. I've only seen it the one time. I'd love to see the Japanese original.
Oh, Ringo's good.
Ringo, yeah.
It's really really good. Comparing the two I know you brought it up a little bit, but comparing the two Leatherfaces, like what do you like about how he's portrayed in the original and then how he's kind of portrayed in the remake? And do you think, like you actually said, that you think he might be portrayed a little bit better in the remake?
I think he's more menacing. His costume design is a little bit, I guess, more menacing and like grittier. And also, the first movie is just way more colorful. I don't really think that takes away from like how terrifying Leatherface is as a character, but sorry, Jeremy, I totally intended for you to answer this question first, but on the rant, I really like in the original is that Leatherface sort of has like different personalities associated with different masks. Like at the dinner scene, he's got like his makeup face on, and that's how he ends up chasing Sally at the very end. And I think he has one more mask other than like his typical look that we're introduced to him in. I thought that was a cool like story character trait for him to have, like he's in different moods when he's wearing different masks, which I think is a cool insight to his character that we don't really get a whole lot of in the original because it's so tight and we don't see a lot of him. So I think I'm just a sucker really for the original more, so I gotta put my weight behind that. But he's definitely like, if I'm stacking them up against each other, like he's definitely scarier in the remake. But what do you think, Jeremy?
I think they both stand on their own for sure. Like
they're both the stars of their show for sure.
Yeah, like Leatherface from the original. I think it was Gunnar Hansen, and you can thank
Gunnar Hansen,
Team 4 for allowing me to remember that. Do you remember that?
There you go.
Yeah, but no, Gunnar Hansen. He I don't know. His Leatherface is like definitely more mysterious. Like you said in the remake, you kind of see him like playing with like sewing together like the faces and all that. But yeah, in the remake, he's definitely like more hulking and like he's just like brute force. Like he's just this like huge guy. I mean, he busts down that door. Yeah, I think they both stand on their own.
Yeah,
they definitely give him more of a. Well, I don't know if this is good or bad. They give him more of a backstory, maybe a reason, like the whole like skin disease thing, and like they kind of give him like what feels like. Not a motive per se, but like I guess more like you don't really learn anything about him in the original at all, which I think works in its own way too. Like the fact that you're kind of just I think the fact that you're kind of dropped in on them, like the whole family, and you don't really know. You get by the end of it, you get the impression that they've been doing it a very long time, and that's the kind of like that was why that movie works. Like you're not really given the reasons why, and I actually think it's scary that you're not given the reasons why.
Right, they give you just enough, but not like this, long backstory. It's not like Rob Zombie's Halloween.
Too much backstory is a bad thing. I think some ambiguity goes a long way.
That first fucking hour is just a Rob Zombie movie, and
yes.
But I do like in the original that you kind of just pop into the situation and like pretty much experiencing it as they do, because like you have no idea why this is really happening, and I think that works in its benefit.
Watching the remake too had me thinking that like, and I maybe if you guys have a different interpretation of him as a character, by all means, I'd like to hear it. But I kind of looked at him as not like your typical slasher, like quote unquote psycho, where Leatherface, when you think about it in both iterations, like the original and the one we're talking about right now, he's more of just like a product of his family. He's like his family's like killing machine, basically. Like he was obviously raised by these like sadistic cannibalized people to kind of do their bidding, and obviously didn't know any different, and so has lived his life sort of at their will. But he's not like your typical like origin of evil like Michael Myers or like vengeful zombie psycho like Jason. Like he's sort of just like been just raised to do this when you think about it, and I thought that was a kind of a cool take, but easy to lump him in with the other serial killers. But definitely doesn't seem like he had much of a choice or anything unnatural sort of motivating him to do what he does. Just sort of a product of a really messed up family environment.
You definitely took the words out of my mouth. Like he's not sympathetic by any means.
No, exactly. Yeah, don't get me wrong, not at all.
But he's like a human monster. Like
good term.
Environment, like you just said, and like there was a person there, and now he's just like full on monster. Like just
human monster is a great way to put it.
Yeah, I think in the original you kind of get a glimpse of it, like when they bring her to the house, and he's all pissed off about the door. And then when he goes to the kitchen, like they basically like berate him, and then like he's like, "Did anyone see you? Did anyone like basically did no one saw it?" And he's like, in Leatherface in his own way, he's like, no, basically no one saw him. Right. And then like the cook is just like, he's like, "Oh, but you broke the damn door," and like he starts hitting him with the broomstick again. Like, you kind of like I said, he's not sympathetic, but like you're like, this is why he is who he is.
Like messed up.
On very that point, I'm glad you brought that up from the original. That's a great insight as to, like, the dynamic of the family, because if you just look at like a scene of Leatherface like chasing around like our protagonists, to think that there'd be somebody that could actually like intimidate and like lay a hand on him, it would be unthinkable. But to think that behind closed doors, he's very much just a kind of, a tool, I guess, for his father or whatever dynamic he has with the cook. I think it's his father, right? They don't really actually doesn't explicitly say.
They really say,
right. But he has a brother. One of them is the hitchhiker is his brother, right?
Brother, right.
And you can, I guess, assume that the cook is their father, but you don't really know. But kind of cool that he has somebody that can intimidate him and put him in his place, because he's such a brooding, terrifying figure.
Yeah. I love that you kind of get the dynamics of what that family is, in just a few like interactions where they're talking to each other. Like when the hitchhiker basically gets mad at the cook, he's like, "Yeah, you're just a cook." Like me and like Leatherface, like, we do all the work, and like, and then even in that just line of dialogue, you also realize like, yeah, they've been doing this a very long time. And like, this is like what the dynamic is. And I said earlier about the cook though, like it's just the whole like he in his brain, I feel like he's not as bad as them. Like he thinks that, compared to like those two, that the moral code that he has is just very funny and also kind of scary, that he just thinks that he's like he's the good one,
right? Exactly. When you think like who taught them to do that, probably him. It's almost like in a way he's like a farmer, and his herd, I guess, are his boys who he is taught to wrangle in people for them to kill and eat, I guess, more or less, because he was sick of doing it himself, which is a really odd spin on farming, I guess. But very disturbing.
Have you guys seen the I think it's just called Leatherface, the prequel?
Oh yeah.
No, how is that hold up?
Not good.
No. Is it 2010s?
I think 2017 it came out. Yeah.
Oh, that recently. Okay. Yeah, I remember that now that you mentioned that. I'm gonna pull this up on IMDb here.
It had some good actors in it, but I wasn't a fan. It felt like if you think the 2003 remake felt like gratuitous or anything, like this is really. I remember there being like a sex scene with a dead body and like somebody hiding inside like an animal carcass. Like it's
Who do we got? Oh yeah, Stephen Dorff from Blade is in it.
Yeah.
Toby Hooper with that writing credit just for that original. What do I know Finn Jones from? Where do I know that name?
He was
Iron Fist, I think.
Yeah,
which I haven't seen, but I just see that on his IMDb profile. But
he was Iron Fist. He's like the worst. He was on the worst Marvel Netflix show.
That's tough.
And he's like so bad. Like he was fine. He was fine on the Defenders because it was like, all right, you blend in with like other really good people. But like on his own, it was like, oh, this is really bad. Not good. But the Texas Chainsaw Massacre like sequels and stuff.
It's a mixed bag for sure.
It's a mixed bag because like I know a lot of people like the second one because the second one goes almost like a full comedy. It's like a dark humor. Yeah. I mean, and I guess you can kind of see the dark humor, especially in like the dinner scene from like the original. Like there's some of it that's so absurd that it's like, I guess it could be like darkly funny.
There's like a chili contest. The chili contest.
In the chili contest. Yeah. In the second one, yeah.
Dennis Hopper is in the sequel. Oh my god, what?
And my issue with the second one, like I think it's fun, but I'm not a fan of the more comedic route it took. Like I think like there's aspects of the original movie that are frightening and scary, and that's why it works. Making it go almost like a full comedy was like it. I mean, but I guess they felt like that was the best thing they could do because if they couldn't want to like just imitate themselves. Yeah, it's a really odd movie, and then they
even looking at the cover and the tagline right now on IMDb, like, you can tell this is like it looks like it's a parody of itself, which is hilarious. You get like Leatherface is like literally holding his fist up.
Well, I guess like it's a callback to like the Breakfast Club.
Yeah,
poster. Like they
exactly.
want to,
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
After a decade of silence, the buzz is back. That's the tagline. That is awesome. 14 years in between, or 12 years rather, in between that movies is pretty cool too. And this one got the 18+ rating I'm seeing.
Yeah. It's certainly, there's some good kill gore stuff in it.
Okay.
And I know a lot of people that love it. They love that it's like kind of a fan favorite because like some people like the more, embracing the funny aspects a bit more. I don't love that at least for this movie or the franchise, but it definitely has its fans. I mean, I think you might find like some kind of twisted fun in it. I mean, it is like a fun watch. It's just
knowing that going in would be a help.
Yeah, like if you were like, you were going in blind, and if you were to watch like the original and then watch the second one, you'd be like,
I'd have been like, what?
What the hell is it? What the hell what were they thinking? But yeah, it's been a very up and down, like you said. It reminds me, like, as far as horror franchises go, like the ones that are up and down, like it's like this one for me. It's Hellraiser as a franchise is very up and down. The Exorcist is another one that's very up and down.
I think it'd be hard pressed to find any sort of like horror series with more than 3 entries that are not of varying quality.
Like yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And this is the only franchise that has Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey. Like,
wow, are they in the same one?
They try to.
Yeah, they're the same one. They try to pretend like it never happened.
I think it was shot in like 94, and then it didn't come out until like 97 or something.
Yeah, so they were both on the come up. So he had already done A Time to Kill. Jerry Maguire, and I think their people were just like, no one must see this movie, like, and know that they were in it.
Right. Oh boy.
It's that movie's funny just to watch for that, just knowing that they're in it, and just like they probably like, what the hell did I sign up for? Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous.
It's quite an experience, yeah.
Experience indeed. Yeah. They really want. I think if it was up to them, it's like Jennifer Aniston in Leprechaun. Like she doesn't talk about that either.
Right. Yeah. Only real like film geeks would even like know and associate her as being in that, probably.
Yeah.
And which is a great job on her management or agent or whoever's in control of that.
I guess you got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know what they say? I love that IMDb sort of like series, like No Small Parts. It's really a great name, I guess, for what they do.
Exactly.
Everyone gets their start somewhere.
And some actors and actresses kind of disown sometimes when they're a part of horror movies, and then some embrace it. I mean, I don't see the point if it wouldn't know who you are for some people without it. Like, I mean, everyone needs their first gig. I mean, I know Kevin Bacon talks more about Friday the 13th now than he used to. It's not really a huge talking point for him when someone brings it up, but it's like,
his Death in that movie too was
that's great.
Yeah, it is a great one. Like you should own that, like, and to be killed by, I guess not Jason, but to be in that series is pretty iconic. So, and
right, and then also I think it helps when like you're in a good one, right? So it's very easy for Jamie Lee Curtis to embrace the original Halloween because like it's a good movie, so she can be like, oh yeah. I'm so proud of being in that. Like, I think it might be different than like Leprechaun. So, I mean, I don't know if you want to completely own it, but like, I feel like people like you more if you own the fact that, I did that. Like, whatever, it's fun.
Yeah,
whatever.
Exactly. It's your career. Be proud of it, regardless of how it maybe is aged or been received.
Does she make fun of being in Resurrection, Jamie Lee Curtis?
She talks a lot of shit about it. I mean, she's very open that like, hey, she knew when she signed on for H2O that she was contractually obligated to appear in it. And that's how she discusses it. Like she was made to do it. But she's like one of those people when she's promoting, like when she promoted H2O, she talked about how, it was exciting to come back 20 years later. She talked a lot of good stuff about it. Well, then when she did Halloween 2018, she talked a little bit of shit about H2O. Like kind of like this is like the real like sequel. Yeah. I was like, oh, I mean, but I mean, I guess that's fair. Like you're promoting like one thing, like you just talk that one up.
Right.
Especially if that thing is disowning those other movies, which is what the Halloween 2018 did. But she again though, and it's to her credit, she does talk very highly of like she is very much aware like horror movies, like she did a bunch of them, and she wouldn't really have a career had she not done a lot of them, and she got out of it when she felt like she needed to, she thought she was going to get pigeonholed if she like kept doing them. Like, I mean, I think I talked about it with you, Jackson, where like she did Halloween and like it did well, and she thought she was going to get like a bunch of movies after that, and she didn't. And then that's why John Carpenter was like, well, I have this part in The Fog. Like, you haven't been in the movie since Halloween. And she was like, all right. And then from there, like, she just, like Prom Night, Terror Train, Halloween 2, like all back to back. And made her a Scream Queen.
And yeah, if anything, that worked out for the best for her. And she's a legend because of it.
Yeah, true. And by the way, Marilyn Burns deserves credit. I mean, she's passed away now, I think. But a true Scream Queen in her own right, because she has some pipes on her. I'm
having a look.
I just imagine that she probably lost her voice from screaming that much. I'd be curious to know like how long they shot some of that stuff. Is this one like, we need like multiple takes of this, or I would love to know about like the full on like filming process of that movie.
Yeah, and that would be some great behind the scenes for sure.
I remember reading it was like a really hard, difficult production for sure. Yeah,
especially such a low budget 70s movie like that.
The humidity, it was always like in the hundreds in Texas, and
and then like most of them were like unknown actors then. So they're like, and then they also know. I mean, I guess if you're doing a movie that costs $140,000 to make, I mean, I guess you're like, this is not going to be the most pleasant of conditions to work in.
No.
And and they were filming in Texas when like all that Texas heat was genuine and real. And like, I can't imagine it was a fun shoot, but I guess like, the outcome of it is you get like something that's a classic, and you get to kind of, I mean, I always think we've talked about this with Tobe Hooper. Like, he got to direct this. It's a really great movie. It's a really solid horror movie. And then we've talked about the Poltergeist thing before, where he directed it, or Steven Spielberg directed it, depending on who. Like, but it's weird. It's interesting because he has like, I'll even throw Poltergeist in. So like, you hear that name, Tobe Hooper, and you think about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it seems like they may have done more for the genre as a whole. And like, really, he did like these two really solid, great horror movies. And I mean, do you list him alongside someone like John Carpenter or like Wes Craven or anything like that?
I feel like he doesn't get like, I guess, mainstream praise as much as he might be deserving.
Yeah, I think
that's at least my in my thoughts anyway. I don't feel like I hear at least more like mainstream people throw his name in there as one of the great horror directors, but he gave us some of the finer ones for sure.
And it's funny that Poltergeist is also PG, and you were saying
yeah
there you go.
He was pulling for a PG with Texas Chainsaw. There's no way.
I could imagine the MPA, they would just see the title and wouldn't even watch it. They're like, we're slapping this with an X.
100%.
You want a PG rating for something called the Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Not gonna happen.
Not gonna happen. But yeah, they're also talking about with the original movie too, like it ended up making so much money because like it was their idea to like do the whole false marketing. It's based on a true story, even though there's aspects of Leatherface that are like loosely based on like Ed Gein and stuff like that. Like, they really sold the whole like this really happened thing. And actually the remake in its marketing did that too, which was smart.
Yeah,
and that was what it was before a lot of that was really going on in horror movies, where it was like, oh, this is like based on a true story or inspired by true events. So, and if you ever, I don't know if you've ever seen the trailer for the remake, it is probably one of the best, like, not just horror movie trailers, but it's like a really solid movie trailer in general. Like,
check it out after.
Really,
it's like I remember seeing that in the theater, and I was like, oh yes, they're on opening night for sure.
Right,
this looks amazing. But yeah, it definitely wasn't. Critics did not like it. As you mentioned, Roger Ebert gave it 0 stars. But his complaint in it is the same complaint that we've talked about during this whole Tales of Horror thing with him. Is that like, I think he actually mentioned the whole because you thought it was a cool shot, the whole like camera when she shoots herself in the head, and like
Right.
he thought someone like him, he thought that was really gratuitous, and like didn't think it was very innovative or like he he just thought it was gross.
Right.
And
I mean, and it is, but they don't have to be mutually exclusive.
Yeah, I think I remember reading Roger Ebert's review, and when it first came out, and he used the word like vile and like unpleasant, and I feel like if the director read those adjectives, he'd be like, "Yep,
that's, yes,
that's what we were going for." Yeah,
I was going for, but I don't know.
He was definitely. I mean, as much as I love Roger, and this is not a knock against him at all, but I think liked what he liked because he's a product of his time. And by the 2000s, horror, the landscape had changed. It was probably unrecognizable from what it was when he was growing up. So I don't blame him for not liking sort of stuff like that. But I'm also not surprised he didn't like this.
He didn't love the original either, but he did. He did say that he praised like the acting and like it being like a good technical film,
right?
But he also in describing the original movie, he said it's as violent and gruesome and blood-soaked as the title promises, but there isn't a lot of gore in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So that's another example of like maybe that movie just makes you think you're seeing more than you're actually
I think so.
seeing on the screen. That's interesting that that's kind of the route he went with calling it that, and it's not that at all. But in regards to the remake too, like just like the original movie, it was very successful. Had a $29.1 million opening weekend. I think this is a $10 million budget for the remake. Ended up making $107.4 million worldwide. I think it might be the highest grossing of the by default.
Wouldn't be surprised.
And like I said, it did, and it sparked the whole let's remake every horror movie thing, and very quickly too. It wasn't like there wasn't a lull between like them like remaking almost every horror movie after that. And I do remember after it was successful, and I didn't want to put it out there in the ether, but I was like, I feel like Halloween's not too far behind. I feel like
well, you were right.
I was like, I feel like someone's about to do it, and I was like, and then when I found out who was doing it, I was like, oh no.
Were you not a fan of Rob Zombie at that time?
Well, so I actually don't mind his music. Actually, I like some of his music. I didn't like House of a Thousand Corpses, so that was like
right.
So I was like, no,
I
like Devil's. I like Devil's Rejects.
Same.
I was all, it's a much better, and like honestly, Devil's Rejects feels like it owes a bit of a debt to like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like it's very
big time, actually. Yeah.
I did like. I don't know what it is about Devil's Rejects that feels different, but I did like it. Like I was surprised that I liked it because I hated House of a Thousand Corpses, which made me almost not want to watch the Devil's Rejects. But I was like, what you did with this works. And I can't really put my finger on why it all worked.
I have a weird,
I enjoyed it.
I have a really weird relationship with House of a Thousand Corpses. I remember renting it back in the day, hating it, thought it was like so obnoxious. Like I know it was supposed to be like an unpleasant horror movie, and it did remind me of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, just with like more color.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of had like a carnival freak show vibe to it. It was very much the archetype of like a Rob Zombie movie.
Very much so.
But yeah, The Devil's Rejects, I don't know, it just works as a movie for me more than Corpses. I don't know.
That's the case for most people.
Yeah.
Except for maybe like Rob Zombie purists, but
right.
Yeah.
And it just had its is that 20-year anniversary?
Yeah. I was actually I was sent a copy of it for work, and I was like, I really don't want it. But like,
even after all these years, it's not growing. I guess.
No, not at all, man. And I've seen it like maybe 3 times.
Oh, okay. Well, I would just say, not for you then.
Like, not for me, but Devil's Rejects. I was like, that was that was solid.
Did either of you guys subject yourself to 3 from Hell?
I did.
I did.
Yeah. Okay, that's enough
said.
said.
No. I think it was a little bit of both. Like it was a little bit of, it had the strengths of like The Devil's Rejects, and then it had the weaknesses of House.
Agreed. Yeah. Really, after that ending of The Devil's Rejects, I don't know why he even thought that to even return to that story, but
right. thought we
Oh
were.
well.
I just pulled up a piece of Roger Ebert's review of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake.
Okay, yeah. What's he have to say?
And
I've never read his review.
You would think it kicked his baby. He said it's a contemptible film, vile, ugly, and brutal. There is not a shred of reason to go see it. Those who defend it will have to dance through mental hoops of their own devising, defining its meanness and despair as style or vision or commentary on our world.
Wow, that's as ruthless as I've ever heard him be towards a movie.
Well, that's how you really feel.
And then someone like me, after I see it opening night, was like, well, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Such is the beauty of art criticism, I suppose.
Yeah, Leonard Maltin gave it 1.5 stars out of 4. He said there's a lack of likable characters and a lack of humor, which was present
okay.
in the
I
original.
agree with those things, but
yeah,
humor, like
yeah, I guess you're not really going in for that. I don't find there's humor in the original either, so that's kind of a weird criticism. But I mean,
Franklin is kind of like
unintentionally funny.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There is some like funny like line drops, and then there's also some weird dialogue in the remake, like when they're in the van and the guy, I think it's Andy, is talking about, oh, so that's what like brains look like, like kind of like lasagna. Yeah. And the button on that though is watching how Pepper looks at him afterwards, where she's just like, I'm never sleeping with you again.
Right.
Like
exactly.
And then like I also love when the hitchhiker says like they're all dead or something like that, and then Morgan's like, oh, I'm way too stoned for this. Like I thought that stuff was
there's humor.
There's humor in it, yeah. I mean,
and
some of it is
like,
oh yeah, he's funny, he's hilarious. It's very weird. Yeah. When as soon as he says like she's a little wet down there, like what have you guys been doing with this dead body? I was like, oh,
yeah, that was gross.
Yeah.
And then like talking about copping feels and like grabbing her boobs, and they're just like, what the fuck? Where are we?
Yeah, what kind of law enforcement is this?
I'm also trying to imagine this. It takes place in the 70s, right? I feel like they're kind of just not okay with the situation they're in, but like I would be like, dude, this is not like a real cop. This is not how you do things.
Right.
I mean, maybe that's how they wrong. Like I have to go meet you like somewhere to go make a report. Like, why can't you come here? Like, yeah, everything about it. They don't really question a lot of it. They think it's weird, but they're just kind of like they don't really question a lot about.
No, true. I mean, they gotta have some. They have some angry questions, I guess, for the lady who calls the sheriff, as if she's gonna provide any more information. But very soon after that, you should be able to ascertain that something is not here. Like, what sort of lawn? What taxpayer dollars are going towards this police force here? If this is what the sheriff is like.
And they like wrapping her up in fucking plastic.
And saran wrap. Yeah, like, what the hell? Like, just ridiculous.
And there's the tea lady, I think they credit her as.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And the I mean, she's not really the mother, but the one with the baby.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know. They're just like weirdos. I don't know.
Yeah,
they are.
They seem very shoehorned in there.
Yeah. Are they members of the Hewitt family?
Yeah, at least by association, if not actually, because they some of them lend the most insight to Leatherface that we get in the movie, talking about his condition and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But I was a little bit kind of not sure about their involvement too in the overall human family. But
you get more of them in the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah, you learn a lot. You learn about them a bit more.
More than you want.
More than you want to. Yeah.
I don't really want to know anymore.
I actually think Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning is not bad. I think it's just it deserves a little bit more credit than it actually probably gets.
It has some good moments for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, there is some real fun. Like, I mean, I think Jackson, you'd probably have a lot of fun with it because it is.
Oh
yeah. It's violent and it's fun in that regard.
Okay.
It has the best car accident scene.
Oh yeah, it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not from the ending, is it?
No.
Okay.
No.
It's what strands these young people. Yeah.
Okay.
That's all I'm gonna say.
young, good-looking people.
Yeah, these hot people.
They all have to be hot.
This is the one with Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger.
No, it's the one with Jordana Brewster.
Oh, okay, right. I see.
Yeah, she's also in like a tank top. So.
Right, of course. I don't think
she's basically dressed the same way as Jessica Biel.
Right,
right, yeah.
And this one came out when
2006.
6. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right after. Okay.
Yeah. And an argument can be made that I think Jordana Brewster is a little better than Jessica Biel. I mean, just my opinion. I also have a crush on Jordana Brewster. So that could be why.
Definitely.
It's been a while since I've seen the beginning, but the Jessica Biel's performance is more fresh in my mind. But
I do know the guy who played Leatherface. I don't want to butcher his last name, but Andrew. I can't pronounce his last name. But I forgot what interview it was, but he spoke so highly of Jessica Biel because he said that she was just like kind of like down the dirt with him. Like she was willing to do like anything to kind of like to make it like make the scenes more authentic. Like she was super athletic, so like she could like kind of hold her own, and like he loved working with her. He did not say similar things about Jordana Brewster, who I guess was like he gave the impression that she was a little bit of a prima donna, and I mean maybe she was in 2006. I'm sure she's maybe grown.
Right.
But she wasn't, and then she also started dating the director while they were making the movie. So there was that.
Oh yeah, that would probably make tensions on set, probably.
Yeah. So he smoked the world of Jessica Biel and kind of was like, well, Jordana Brewster was there.
Okay. Interesting. I didn't realize he played Leatherface over multiple movies.
Yeah, too. He loved playing the character. Like he loved that character. Like he's
built like.
I think that's the benefit of having someone that's an actor and not just a stuntman playing that part, because he kind of like looked into it, like he took it very seriously.
Okay.
For both movies. But yeah, the experience of making Beginning compared to the remake, he said, was very different. Like it was a much different, challenging shoot.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah. Where everyone kind of came to play on, I guess, on that first one, like even the younger actors who were, not entirely well known, and then like with the prequel, it wasn't the same, I guess. But, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So, sometimes I hate hearing behind the scenes stories like that, where it's like almost like where you're like, oh well, man, there was tension, like people didn't get along. It almost like takes you out of it a little bit when you hear stories like that. But
yeah, agreed. It's nice. So sometimes you can like feel that it's like palpable, like while watching the movie. But I think in a lot of ways, in across different movies, it's helped sort of facilitate a more natural chemistry between actors, especially ones that didn't get along with each other. Sometimes for the benefit, sometimes not so much. But yeah, it's definitely not an uncommon, I guess, thing to happen on a movie set, especially when you're spending months together with people you might not necessarily like or respect, depending on the movie.
Yeah, I do. I'm going back to your face from earlier, because like every time we do these like 20th anniversary or anniversaries, and like either you hadn't seen it or it's been a while, like your face is like so telling.
It's such a giveaway. Yeah.
I was like, oh, he did not enjoy that.
It's all on your face.
No, and
it was right away too.
On that note, like I don't think there's anything I had to say about the remake that I didn't get in there. I was curious about the guys' like particular ratings on it, I guess, and how it holds up against other movies in the Texas Chainsaw franchise. How would you guys compare score wise, I guess, the original to the remake, not considering anything else? I guess I'll start with you, Jeremy.
Do you want me to do like an actual rating?
However you rate your movies.
I mean, I would the OG. I would either do. I mean, I'm gonna go 5 out of 5. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Respectable. For 03, I would probably say 4 out of 5.
Okay. Nice. So a lot of love for both. That's nice.
Yeah. But I mean, the OG came first. So
that's right. And I mean, that can sometimes I believe that a remake or reboot can usurp an original if it adds enough new things to it,
right?
And builds upon it while respecting the original. But In this case, I don't think it does that, but it does enough good things right and is a good homage to the original in some ways.
Yeah, you can't help but compare. It's like unavoidable, especially
Yeah.
something that's so influential like the original.
Yeah,
Totally.
and people get so mad sometimes when you do. Like I was seeing that a lot with people who were trying to defend The Exorcist Believer. They're like, well, you can't compare it to the original. But I was like, it's so hard not to, because like one you're like you're latching yourself onto it by making it a legacy sequel to the original movie. So like, I know it's not entirely fair because like, of course, The Exorcist is like a classic and of its time, and it's been very hard to kind of duplicate that and make that work again. But like, I think it's hard not to like throw in comparisons to like an original movie when
right
like that. I mean, like I think it's fair, like because they're trying to go for. I mean, they're trying to go for like making something hopefully that's just as good. That's the intention, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really difficult not to compare things like that. As far as my score, so the original, I guess I would do like an 8.5 out of 10.
I'd match you on that probably.
I think I love that it's a very short, tight movie too. Like it's just like it gets in and gets out, and I mean that in a really, really good way. And I also think it has the benefits of like having a low budget and like the way it looks, it just feels very like, you know, I can see how leaning in on that whole like false marketing of like it's based on a true story works because it feels very real. Like you mentioned it earlier, like a lot of it doesn't feel scripted.
Right.
Like it just seems like it's
authentic.
Like you found some like home video and like like this is what you found when you're watching it.
Right.
There's that authenticity that it has. I think it's probably why it's considered one of the most like influential horror films of its time. I think when it came out, and the remake, I would probably give it a 6 out of 10.
Okay.
I loved it more when it came out. Like I really like when it came out 20 years ago. I was all about it.
Right.
But like I said, it was the first time I've watched them back to back, and
right.
you can really see like, oh, their things are a little different. This isn't working. They show, but I still think, and it's weird me giving it such a low score because I would still like watch it again, and it's fun. And I honestly think it's probably one of the better horror movie remakes. I don't know if that says a lot, but like
that's been one of the things where I've I mean, there's probably lots I need to see. But like that's been one point I guess that I've disagreed with that you guys have both mentioned now that I didn't think it was a great remake. But I, not to take away from either of your opinions, it's just I think I need to see probably some more. But I think I have better memories about Marcus Nispel's other remake of Friday the 13th, but I need to revisit that one, I think, before I make up my mind.
Well, it's a great 15-minute opening, and then the rest
and then the rest is just
hot garbage.
Yeah. The appetizer's great, the entree is
great.
Right.
That's a great analogy, Jeremy.
I completely understand why when they remade Friday the 13th, why they went with Marcus, because he had success with Texas Chainsaw. They were like, okay, like do that again. And so it made sense. And it's not like that Friday the 13th remake is like lacking in style or something. Like it's a good looking movie. It's just like I just don't know how you have such a killer opening like that, and then the rest of it is just. I want to spend like all my time with those characters from the first 15 minutes, and then like most of the people that were in the rest of the movie. It was just like not nearly. And then they killed that one girl. I mean, I thought she was going to make it to the end. I guess that was like a surprising thing about Friday the 13th is that one girl that you thought would be the final girl, she like dies, and I was like, and I remember thinking like it was like so cruel. I was like, that's why. I was like, no,
I can appreciate it for sort of like taking that leap.
She had that shitty boyfriend and everything, and now she gets to die.
Now she's just dead and has a shitty boyfriend.
But yeah, what's your? You say you matched me on the 8.5 out of 10 on the
exactly. If I were rank it out of 5 stars, I would probably go 4.5 for it. But like I like 8.5 more than I like giving it a 9. And for the remake, I honestly I hadn't really settled on anything yet, but like I think I'd give it a 4.
Oh yeah, on the lower end. I think that might be your lowest score.
Maybe
so far.
Yeah. I mean, if I had watched this in a different time, maybe if I ever see it in the future, I would change it. But like, I don't imagine that I'll get around to it any other time. But I'd be open to like seeing. I want to see the beginning. There's other Texas Chainsaw, I think, movies I want to see at least for the first time. But yeah, I guess especially like when stacking this up to the original, it's just, I don't really think it holds up.
I wonder if your enjoyment of Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning would be more because it's not really directly connected to like it being a remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's
I'm
its
thinking
own
the
thing.
same thing. Yeah, exactly. Doesn't necessarily have to follow any rules of the original set. Yeah, I think I'd be interested to see how that holds up. Maybe we'll end up talking about it maybe next Halloween or later in the year or something. But definitely one to look out for myself.
For sure. And you know what? I have to admit, I was gonna say I thought you were gonna enjoy it more than you did.
Okay.
I was like, oh, I think he might like this one, and then I was like, no, he didn't.
and hey, I never have a bad time watching something. It's just a matter of how I felt afterwards. But I'm glad we got to chat about it, and I'm still a big fan of the franchise. I love the original so much. I'm glad we got it in over this spooky season and got to chat about both. Regardless, it's fun to have something that, at least in my case, I like and then don't like instead of just, going into saying the same thing, I guess, about both. But
the only thing I could wish sometimes when you have that kind of reaction to movies, like I wish I could be like in the room with you while you're watching it and wonder if you're just like,
someday. Because I definitely emote. What's that?
Yeah, it's like Shia LaBeouf style, where he shot himself like watching his own movies.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Camera on you watching it.
I couldn't do that if I were an actor, but yeah, no, that would be fun. Maybe I should set up a camera.
Because I feel like you would like emote if you really didn't like something, like even by yourself, just like
picture Brad Pitt towards the end of Seven when he knows what's in the box. Oh God.
Oh God. No.
Just picture that sort of.
Yeah. Well, we can't win them all.
No, right. It's still a lot of fun regardless. It's not that I didn't hate my life watching it by any means. I have plenty of movies I've liked a lot less than this one. So you know what? It's not that bad. Yeah. And someone had to be the odd one out. So
it'd be boring if we all liked it.
Like, that's my thoughts exactly. Yeah. Unless you get, there's obviously movies that'll always be the case, but
right.
Yeah.
No, it's always fun when someone goes rogue. I didn't like it. Like, oh crap. And then like, even though we do it for this show, but then like, hey, like I want to do an anniversary episode for this movie, and you're always like, yeah, I'm down, I'll watch it.
100% always.
If you don't have like the enjoyment, like, oh, he didn't like it, like fuck. But I mean,
but that's the thing,
it's
like,
fun that way.
100%. Like if there's a movie that you want to cover and show some love to on the show, then I'm more than happy to cover it, and just adds to the dynamic. I never want to like be like, nah, we shouldn't cover it because I don't like it. That would just feel selfish. So, and maybe there will be a day where I want to cover something too that you're not a fan of. I'm waiting for it because I think generally,
I think our tastes kind of are in line.
Very much so, definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey, I mean, you enjoyed Wild Things. That was one from
exactly.
Like,
I really enjoyed that movie.
You're like, that was surprisingly fun, and then Can't Hardly Wait. You were like, yeah, that was fine.
Thought that was not a good fun too. Even thinking back,
no, it's been like the slasher horror ones from like '98 that have not landed. Like Halloween H2O, he was like, and Urban Legend, he was like,
was it the mask? Was it the mask?
Oh, the mask was a detractor for sure.
I mean, the many masks,
the CGI mask. But there are still some parts. I was actually talking to my buddy Cam about that movie the other day. He saw it, and that scene when Laurie and Michael reunite through the glass there was an awesome shot from H2O. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So not completely bad by any means.
Yeah, like you mean like you didn't love Urban Legend, but you're like, yo, Rebecca Gayheart was great. So like there's like always like there's always
things to love,
little things to enjoy.
Yeah. This one just less so at least. And again, it's all down to personal taste. It just doesn't mean that it's objectively bad. And again, you know how it is with your mood when you're watching something. Next rewatch might be a completely different experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
10 out of 10 for Jessica Biel's Take Top. There we go.
Absolutely. For sure. The costume department got that right.
Doing most of her acting for her. Yeah. I just love what, like I mentioned the rain thing, but even in the theater when we saw it, I was like, of course it's raining now. Like they just needed an excuse to like get her all wet. That's hilarious. like for no reason.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy, I want to thank you for joining us on this episode.
Yes, I second that.
Come back anytime. If you're ever like, if we were post up anything, you're like, hey, I would love to like chime in on that movie, you are more than welcome to come back and join us. This is always fun.
Totally. Thank you. Next time I'll make sure my camera's working.
If not, we're happy to have your voice.
I had my Michael Myers hoodie on too.
Oh,
so.
no.
I know.
What a waste.
So you were like ready. You were ready.
I was ready, yeah.
Season episode.
Next time.
Next time for sure. All right, Jackson, do you want to sign us on off?
Yes, absolutely. Well, as Gaia said, thanks a lot for joining us today, Jeremy, on episode 128 of Back to the Blockbuster. And thank you, listeners, for joining us, too, on this double feature for us, where we tackled both Texas Chainsaw Massacres, one from 1974, the original, and the 2003 remake. Hope you guys enjoyed the ride with us today. For those of you that are new to Back to the Blockbuster, you guys can follow us anywhere on social media at that handle, and you guys can find us anywhere you guys get your podcasts. Make sure you tell your movie-loving friends where to find us. Those of you now that have been following us since July know that you can find the playlist app on the iOS App Store and now at the Google Play Store for you Android users. So make sure you guys send some love to Playlist there. They're a big fan of ours, and it's a mutual feeling. So thanks a lot for listening to episode 128. Thank you to our friend Jeremy for joining us. And until next time, guys, take care of yourselves.
Peace. Sorry, it froze. There we go.